Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Big box retailers, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a bill in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. Senate Bill 1838 would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, visit handsoffmyrewards.com and tell them to oppose credit card routing legislation paid for by the Electronic Payments Coalition.
A fraction of a raindrop, 3 grains of salt. At up to 100 times more potent than morphine, the tiniest amount of illegal fentanyl is all it takes to cause an overdose. Fentanyl can be mixed into heroin, cocaine, pressed pills, meth, and other drugs. It could be in your drugs, and you wouldn't be able to see it, taste it, or smell it. Learn more at cdc.gov/stop-overdose.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and The Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Hello everyone, joining us on today's podcast is a rising star, a young journalist with Rein in Racing, Careers in Racing and Silks magazine. Hello Sam Martin.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's very exciting.
Well, I thought it was time I interviewed you as you'd been on the Paddock and the Pavilion, I think 3 times. You were on Cheltenham Memories with our friend Richard Pittman. Mm-hmm. You were then on Richard's 80th birthday podcast, and on Horsepower, you did a couple of interviews for me with Robert Bathurst, the actor, and Tanya Kindersley.
Yes, that was a brilliant opportunity. So thank you very much for that. Interviewing Robert was an incredible experience. He was a very nice man, very passionate racing fan. He was one of those people that I didn't actually know until we started working on the Horsepower project, was actually so into racing. And it's always nice when you discover that about a person, isn't it? I loved him in Downton Abbey. So I was trying not to fangirl, I will admit.
Well, talking of racing, are you getting excited? I know we're, just less than 2 weeks away from Cheltenham. This podcast will be going out on the 12th, but are you excited about the prospect of the festival?
I am so excited. I kind of count down the weeks for a very long time beforehand. Everything kind of revolves around Cheltenham a bit for me. I've always, since I was a very small child, looked forward to it. And over the last few years, I've been involved in preview nights and that kind of thing. A lot of previews, anti-post, tipping, that kind of thing. And it whets the appetite for the racing itself. And I'm going on Tuesday this year. It'll be the second time I've been on the Tuesday. And I think I've got the best day. So I am very much looking forward to it.
You've got time off from school?
Yes. So I have a very understanding post-16 department and head teacher. They know that I am a racing journalist, and they're very, very, very supportive of that. And my head teacher is a very avid racing fan. So they've authorised the absence as work experience, because I'll be producing content and that kind of thing on my social media about the day. And it's just nice to be there and be able to report on that kind of thing. You know, Honeysuckle's last race, Constitution Hill, obviously John Bond versus El Fabriolo. So it's going to be a really good day.
Going back to when you first got interested in horse racing, how did that happen?
Well, that happened because I used to go and visit my granddad every Saturday. We'd have lunch with my granny, and then he'd pop the racing on in the afternoon, and I'd kind of be playing like Uno was always one of my granny's favourite. I'd be playing Uno and then kind of watching the racing at the same time on the TV that my granddad was watching, because he always had the chair right next to the TV. And then I'd kind of follow Ryan Moore's horses in the race, or AP McCoy if it was over jumps. And then eventually my granddad got poorly and he got dementia, and he kind of struggled with, conversations and speech and his movement and that kind of thing. Luckily, he not really luckily, but he had vascular dementia, so he never actually forgot who we were. And you could always guarantee he could remember, his love for horse racing. And so if we put it on, it'd kind of be back to his old self. And I knew if I could, even if he was having a bad day, if I'd tell him something about the racing, he could kind of, I think it'd always make him smile. And I think the reason why I kind of pitch racing so enthusiastically is because making that kind of effort was always something I did with Grandad, and I knew it got a good response. So I suppose that's why I'm so kind of overtly enthusiastic about it all, because it just kind of was infectious to him.
You mentioned Ryan Moore. Who were your racing heroes when you were growing up? Oh, you're only 18 now, so you're not, you're still growing up. You're still so young now.
Yeah, so it was always Ryan Moore that I liked to follow. I think I did like Frankie Dettori at first, and I remember finding out about one of his, I think he got banned for cocaine or something, and me being the list girl I was like, that is awful. I've got to prefer Ryan Moore now. So I obviously respect Frankie Dettori immensely as a jockey, but I do love Ryan Moore, and AP McCoy over jumps, Richard Johnson, Ruby Walsh, all the kind of big names, the ones that wore the distinctive silks, the green and gold of AP. You could always see him in a race, and I think that was why I kind of locked on to following him. And then I progressed to kind of appreciating people for their horsemanship and that kind of thing.
What about horses?
Oh, well, I don't really have, I was probably watching racing at the time, but I don't really have your distinctive memories of Quarter Star, Denman, Frankel. They'd have been on the telly when I was there, but I don't really have the same memory of that as other people, because I am only 18. But I think when Frankel retired, I was probably 8. No, maybe not. Maybe younger. I don't know. When did he retire?
Was he 2012? I think.
Yeah, just before my 8th birthday. That was it. I was a little bit too young to fully appreciate Frankel, but someone reposted Don Cossack's Gold Cup recently, and I watched that and thought, you know what, these horses are all the ones that are responsible for my love of the sport in the years previously, as they kind of rose through the ranks to be running in a Gold Cup. Smad Place is one of my all-time favourites. There's a picture of him over my shoulder. He was just, I love a front runner, and he was such an eye-catching horse. His Hennessy win was incredible. Irish Cavalier, I've got a hand-drawn picture of him up on my wall as well in my bedroom from when he won the Charlie Hall. Don Cossack himself, a gorgeous horse. Carlingford Lock, I think Sub Lieutenant might have been in there. There was the Graham Wiley horse as well. So, that was the race that probably had all a Q Card. I've forgotten Q Card. How can I have forgotten Q Card? Those horses are the ones that really kind of attached to me to jump racing, and I don't really have many like that for flat, I will admit. None that I've kind of got attached to. Just your enables, that kind of thing. She's obviously a superstar. I remember, I think it was the Oaks before her. That was the first time I got into a flat race really deeply. It might have been Forever Togethers, maybe not. And no Brian Philly.
A safe bet, isn't it? Do you remember the first time you went racing live?
Oh, not exactly which one, but we'd always go to Leicester in the summer, and they used to allow you to kind of drive in next to the I think it's where the chase course is now, down the straight, where you've got the chase centre that kind of curves away from the flat course. But for the summer flat meetings, we'd go and we'd park up there, we'd have a picnic. Grandad and my dad would go off to the bookies, and then we'd kind of stay, watch the horses, have a picnic with family. So I've got a lot of really nice memories from that. And I remember always thinking how massive Leicester's stands look, and I mean they're comparably small to a lot of other places, but thinking, one day I'll be round there and I'll be looking at the horses in the paddock and all this.
Just moving on to your career so far, you work for Rein in Racing, Careers in Racing, and now the Silks magazine. Can you let listeners know more about them and what you do for them?
So I started with Rein in Racing when I was just before my 13th birthday, I think. My mum saw an advert for looking for young writers, because it's a website for young people, by young people. I'm not sure how much of a young person audience we actually have. That's more just kind of, racing Twitter people who very kindly read all of our articles and interact with our stuff. But that came about then, because I've always been a really avid writer, and then to combine that with racing was like a really, really appealing idea for me. So I've done quite a lot for them. I'd preview every Saturday race for, I don't actually know how I found the time to do it. While I was at school, I used to do a preview for every single Saturday for all the ITV races. I haven't read them back because they might have just been rubbish, but that was the way I started. And then I did my first interview, which was with Adrian Heskin at Leicester Races in February 2018. So I was 13, and he was brilliant. And I look back on the questions now, and I could have asked such better ones, but I suppose that's the point, isn't it? It's like learning and growing and that kind of thing. So I've consistently wrote for Rein in Racing, like feature pieces, interviews, mainly previews though. My article, Should Young People Get Into Horse Racing, is probably one of the most popular to come out of Rein in Racing, as well as this lovely team of people we had there for a while. We've all kind of grown apart with that, and everyone's priorities have shifted a little bit. I was the baby of the group, and I'm 18 now, so we've all kind of grown up and gone to explore different avenues. But careers in racing as well. I started with careers in racing in just before COVID, I think. We did lockdown. We looked at like the lockdown Grand National and produced content for that. And then I've done quite a lot with them. I think they're a really brilliant site. So I produce, whether it's like little articles for their website or social media content. And I'm a regular attendee to Warwick's Pony Racing Day, which is in October at their track. That's a great day for getting young people into racing. They hold like little workshops with various aspects of the sport for young people. Like one year we had 100 kids, and then they have pony races in the afternoon, which is great. You know, Billy Loughnane, who's a fabulous jockey and has proved himself to be an excellent apprentice.
He's even younger than you.
He's even younger than me, yeah. He was riding at one of those that I was at. And I've been at other race courses where he's been pony racing. It's a brilliant setup. The Pony Racing Authority team are fabulous. And that's a really enjoyable day. I do a lot of kind of takeovers of their Instagram account as well. So I did that. That's what I kind of do at Warwick Days. And then I got media accreditation for Doncaster Racecourse for Racing League in 2022 in August, and that was the most amazing day. I had access to the press box. We were in the weighing room. I spoke to so many people who went down to the start. We watched the stalls, chatted to the stalls handlers. I was in the paddock. It was quite a quiet meeting in terms of connections of horses, so I just kind of had a little area of the paddock to myself, and then I'd just move over. I don't know how well the listeners know Doncaster, but there's like a little it's like a horseshoe shape really where the winner goes into. So I was stood by there taking pictures and posting content online, and it was really great. It was like an insight into what my career could be like in the future. And then Silks magazine is really recent for me.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? So tell us about Silks magazine. I think it's an online magazine, isn't it?
Yeah, so Silks magazine is online. It's a subscription magazine, so you pay. You can either get a membership, which has loads of the benefits as well, or you can just buy individual issues. So it's a bit different for me, working with kind of a paywall with my content. Normally it's just there for everyone to see, so it's a bit different for me, I must admit, but it's interesting to be writing features again, because it had kind of gone on the back burner a little bit. But I think it's a really exciting development for racing, and it's something that could definitely be really, really popular in future. I don't quite know what the buy-in to it has been like so far, but you know, it's something that racing didn't have before, which is kind of an odd thing, because you would have thought it did have a magazine, but we've obviously just got the Racing Post in physical copy, but then online magazine is the future of the print industry anyway. So so many people do online magazines now, and it was about time racing had one.
Wow, I'm exhausted after all that. Your mum's
Sorry, I have rambled, haven't I?
Your mum has got a lot to be. You know, she did a great job, your mum, didn't she, by contacting Rein or putting you in touch with Rein in Racing?
She did, yeah. My parents are great. They're very encouraging with what I do. Dad does all the driving around. Mum's moral encouragement. cameraman sometimes. So it's that I'm very lucky to have them both.
I've seen you in action at Warwick with your mum doing the filming. When you've interviewed that first interview when you were 13, how nervous were you? And what did the jockey think, Adrian Heskin, when you were being interviewed by a 13-year-old?
I was so nervous, honestly. My hand was shaking so much I nearly dropped my phone. But he's a all-round nice guy, so he just answered my questions, and I don't know what he thought. He's probably forgotten all about it. But yeah, I do enjoy interviewing people. That's a perk of the job, because everyone's got such. You find this out with your podcast. Everyone has such interesting stories, and everyone's got a different experience in racing, and it's nice to kind of get that conveyed.
And you've spoken to Ollie Bell and Ed Chamberlain as well.
Yes. They are honestly two of the nicest people I've ever met in general life. I was kind of involved in a Twitter thread talking to Ollie one time. I don't know what year it had been, 2019 perhaps? No, 2018. So it was April 2018. And I just kind of went, do you fancy being interviewed by me? And I didn't expect anything. And he goes, yeah, of course. Follows me, messages me. And then that afternoon, we're chatting on the phone. So he was brilliant, and he was so interesting to talk to. And that was my first real experience of properly talking to somebody in the industry, where I'm not like panicking in person. And then I actually went to Warwick a year later, and he said, he saw me and he went, "Oh, Sam, hello, how are you?" Like, he remembered me. And I think that's something that him and Ed are particularly good at. Like, they remembered who I was. And I interviewed Ed in February or March 2020, after seeing him at Warwick one time. And he's just so brilliant to talk to. And his advice has been like invaluable to me. I do follow a lot of the pieces of advice he's given me. I saw him at the races the other day, and it was great to catch up. And he said, "Give me a couple more years in the job and then you can take over," which made me laugh. We do have a joke about that, because he knows I'd like to do what he does in the future. But I think I'd like to co-host with him, though. I think that'd be really good.
I know you do lots and lots of studying about the racing as well. How do you find the time when you're doing your A-levels and getting ready to go to university?
Oh gosh, I just think there's a lot of commitment, and I suppose I make the most of all the time I have at school to get all work done that I need to do. And then I just prioritise, because a lot of the time, if I do a podcast, it'll be on a Thursday, and I'll know a couple of days in advance, so I can plan my time if I've got homework or anything, and then designate like a couple of hours. I'm getting faster at going through cards efficiently, and then just designate that time beforehand to just prep and get look at all the races. And then it's just about distributing time carefully. And sometimes I don't know how I do it, but so far, touch wood, things are okay. I'm getting the racing will have to go on the back burner. I'm thinking probably after Cheltenham, because I've got my A-levels and I need to get the grades to go to university.
But in some ways, does it take your mind off your studies at school if you can switch off?
It does completely. I like it. It's a good way to socialise with people, and it's nice to do something completely different. But then at the same time, the skills do really help that I've kind of developed in racing. So, writing articles. We're actually looking at a new type of question in my English language A-level classes at the minute, and that's writing an article. And I'm in a really fortunate position because I do that all the time. So I'm actually finding it much easier than a lot of other people. And a similar case for 5% of my coursework was an article, and I managed to put it all together. And 5% of the A-level was an article. And I wrote something just similar to what I do anyway. And it scored, I've had very good feedback from it. It's looking like it's going to score pretty well. So I have the same skills, and talking to people, talking to you, and being kind of confident discussing with other people is also a crucial skill that really does help at school. And it has helped in university interviews.
I'm sure it would. You said in a conversation today that you've worked on some podcasts. You must give a shout out to the podcast that you work for.
Yeah, so Under Starters Orders is the main one that I am involved in. They are, they're super. They're such a brilliant team, and it's a nice little, it's a little family really, led by Chris. He's brilliant, and then Dec and Andy are. I hosted a podcast with them both, and they're just so funny, and they are so knowledgeable. And I think a lot of podcasts nowadays get really kind of bogged down in Cheltenham stuff, and they want to be talking about anti-post, but these guys, they do previews for just your normal Saturday races, and they're so engaging, and they're so great. And like the girls as well, Lauren and Neve, they're brilliant people. Neve's one of a very close friend of mine, and Dee is great as well. Like the whole team's brilliant, and they've got their Cheltenham preview out on the 12th as well, like a little drop-in session where it's going to have loads of different people on with their views on the Cheltenham Festival. And I've probably forgotten another podcast I do because I've got quite a few. I just dip in and out of other people's as well. People often ask me, and I'm always very grateful for the opportunities. And I've done a bit of radio too. So
you use social media a lot. You've got over 5,000 followers now on there.
Yeah.
Does that help you engage with? I mean, you often hear of sort of negatives about social media, but obviously you find it very helpful to your media career.
I do. And I think the positives definitely outweigh the negatives for me, because, I wouldn't have found Rein in. I wouldn't have found quite a lot of my friends that I know through racing. And yes, sometimes it's bad. Like I've had a range of abuse, and, if you say one tiny thing wrong, it can get very nasty. But then at the same time, and people see that, there is quite a community in combating that and going, that's not actually okay. And I'm very grateful to the people that have stood up for me in the past. It doesn't bother me that much because I am the kind of person that I make mistakes a lot, like I know. But a lot of the time, if it's like a difference of opinion on something, on a race or that kind of thing, I suppose the example is, I tipped Monkfish before his first novice chase at 1-2, and I got absolutely slated for it, and people were extremely nasty. But I knew that I'd said in the video tipping him, he's going to be a horse to follow for the season. So I was there going, look, you're all saying this to me, but I'm still confident in my view. Yeah, he's 1-2, but if you're looking, he had a sensational season. Only got beaten once, won at the Cheltenham Festival. And I had that faith in him. And I think if I say something about a horse, I tend to believe it. And I tend to stick to my own guns about things. And I'm quite confident in my views. You've just got to, I know a lot of people do take these things to heart, but I'm lucky I'm surrounded by good people away from social media, and that I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. It doesn't matter what a stranger on the internet thinks of me, really. That's a really convoluted response. I'm really sorry. and you and myself get chance to, must shout out for him here, to be in contact with that former jockey and BBC presenter Richard Pitman, don't we? Yes, I mean, that's something that our kind of friendship with him stemmed after my granddad passed away. And if I could have told him that I was in regular contact with Richard Pitman, he would have been so excited. He was a big fan of Richard's, and Richard is brilliant for advice and just a thoroughly really nice person, and we get on really well. And it's incredible to be able to talk to somebody who's got so much experience in the industry, is part of so many kind of crucial moments in racing history as well. Obviously with the Chris Red Rum race, everyone knows about that, and the fact he was in it and we talked to him a lot, it's really special.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Big box retailers, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a bill in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. Senate Bill 1838 would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, visit handsoffmyrewards.com and tell them to oppose credit card routing legislation paid for by the Electronic Payments Coalition.
I'd like to ask you about, as someone, I think you're from the Generation Z, I had to look this up on the computer, how you would, if you had a blank sheet of paper, how you would get more young people going to the races, interested in the races, because that is key to the survival, the history of the ongoing history of the sport.
It is, and I think you know how much I enjoy seeing the history of the sport and exploring that kind of thing. And I think for me, it's education, and I think that's been proved like massively in the recent weeks, because we have a lot of things in this sport which are very difficult to understand if you don't know, like the whole culture, I suppose. But you've obviously got like specialist terms, furlong, handicapper, that kind of thing. It takes a lot to understand it, I think. And if people can be put in a position where they can find out about it and they can ask the relevant questions, this is going to come in with like issues like the whip and horse welfare and any fatalities we see on track. People just need to be told like what racing is doing to either combat it or help it. And then hopefully people can make a decision for themselves whether they want to be involved in racing. Because I know a lot of people who like the day out, but they don't really know the ins and outs of the sport. And you can have casual viewers and you can have fans, and there's nothing wrong with either of them, is there? But I think for the future of the sport and like the maintenance of the history and the appreciation for racehorses, you've got to be able to understand what you're watching and what you're dealing with.
Do you think the sport can do that better?
I think so, and I think it's very difficult for racing's messages to actually break out of its little bubble, because we are in a little bubble and people don't seek the information, and it's very difficult for us to kind of put it out there to other people. But it's like information plaques at the races, information in the race card, that kind of thing, away from like, the just kind of the necessities, the extra things that can help, going into schools, going into pony clubs. It's just, I do think there's little things to do, but it's, getting young people into racing is such a massive thing, and it's something that far kind of more intelligent and more powerful people than me are looking into. And I just wish we could bottle up the feeling that it gives us when we're at the races, we've had a winner, or we've seen a nice story take place, or experienced a thrilling like 5 furlong sprint or something, and you've got that excitement. Because if other people could feel that, they'd be flocking in the millions to racing, wouldn't they? But unfortunately, it's not as simple as that, is it?
No, but you've got some positive signs there. And I think all sports are faced with the same sort of problems, issues to get more young people interested in those sports.
Absolutely.
It's not just horse racing.
Like you say with social media, like we're in a really transitional period at the minute, I think, with the way that kind of culture's changing. Probably just like in the 20th century so far. You could probably even argue 2010 onwards. There's been a massive transformation in social media and kind of the access people have to information and that kind of thing, and the interest people have with like the rise of like TikTok and Instagram and short videos that people want to see. They want the information fast. They want to be able to see this kind of thing. And I don't think people fully know yet what people really want at the minute, and in terms of content and that kind of thing. It is a bit like a trial and error thing, I think, for a lot of people. But, you've got to be out there on those platforms for young people. But, yeah, it's a difficult time for especially a sport like racing. Even though we view its history as being so enriching, I think some people don't want to let go of the history, and rightly so. But we've got to move with the times, and we've got to move with the cultural ideas that are changing, with rightly more kind of consideration of welfare. And like we've seen it all with the whip lately, haven't we? It's difficult. It's going to be difficult for racing in the future, I think.
Right. Well, with people like you about, Sam, I'm sure it can attract more younger listeners and viewers. And talking about racing, you're also riding yourself. How's that going?
Yes, I do. I ride less than I used to a bit because I rode a horse for somebody for a while, and then she sold him. And then I was working for a yard for 5 years, but unfortunately they closed. So I'm very lucky to be riding a couple of horses for friends. And like Woody's the main horse I ride. He has to put up with a lot. He's been in a lot of pictures lately with various kind of like merchandise I've had, and he's had to pose, but he's a proper poser. He lives with some horses that are involved in modelling shoots and films and that kind of thing. So he likes to model for me.
I've seen you on social media riding him. Do even on that sort of limited scale, does it still give you more of an appreciation of what it's like to be a jockey when you're 100%. Actually doing some riding yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, because I think it's you kind of you can have the appreciation for horses and their kind of how horses need confidence, and horses can have off days too. And I think when you ride, you notice that more, and you can perhaps understand the bad performances of horses, whereas other people, we see it on social media, don't we? You know, he's useless, this and this, with all the after losing favourites and that kind of thing. But it just reinforces, they're not machines. They've all got their own characters. It just helps you appreciate them more, I think. And then on the flip side, makes it all more difficult when we lose one or something like that.
Getting back to Cheltenham, can you give me a few brief tips now for the big races? If I just give you straightforward questions like who's going to win the Gold Cup, the Champion Hurdle, and the Champion Chase, you one word answers, not half an hour, sort of thing.
It's one word answers. Oh, okay, right.
No, you can go a bit longer than that. Yeah, I'll let you on. So the Gold Cup.
Oh, Galopin Des Champs.
So you think he's a worthy favourite for the race?
Yeah, I do think he's a worthy favourite, but I do think he's a little bit short in the market. But the one I've tipped up at a ridiculous price, as an each way chance, is Royal Pagaille. I just think Venetia Williams is a master, and he's always, I think people have always thought an awful lot of him, and he could be a little bit forgotten about this year.
I suppose he will stay, although doesn't he want a bit more rain?
Yes, he will want rain, so we're just hoping people need to do their rain dances next week, because otherwise we don't want to be running on rattling quick ground at Cheltenham.
And the Champion Hurdle, is Constitution Hill unbeatable?
You see, I love State Man, right? But I do think Constitution Hill will probably win. Nicky Henderson's got such a great record in the race recently, but State Man's versatile, and I don't think there should be such a large discrepancy in the prices between them.
And the Champion Chase?
More wide open. I think it's more of a difficult race to work out, but sentimentally, Editor Digit, I'd love to see him win. His owner's been really poorly. I'd love to see Nube Negra win. I think he's a ridiculous price, and he's gonna be fresh. And if we don't get the rain, he's one that doesn't want the rain dance. I think he's been forgotten about. So those at the top of the market, they've underperformed last time, or Edwardstone ran a bit of a weird race. I don't think we can really say he underperformed. It's a difficult one. I'll be interested to see who gets declared.
And one to look out for. And I'm expecting you to say Flooring Porter, but there might be others.
Yes, Flooring Porter. We've heard very positive things about him recently. But I really hope he runs well. All this talking about, and they might have to do different tactics or something like that. Just keep it simple. He just likes to lead from the front. He loves Cheltenham. I know he's been beaten by home by the Lee, but Cheltenham's a whole different ball game. And then there is another one. I Am Maximus. He in the plate on Thursday. He's only had 8 starts. He's won a Cheltenham bumper before, not the Cheltenham bumper, a Cheltenham bumper. And he has had 3 different decent runs over fences, if I get my words out. And then ran in a grade 1 at Leopardstown last time when he was perhaps a little bit tentatively handled. But that's one for the handicap on the Thursday for you.
And a long way ahead yet, but have you got the Grand National winner on April the 15th?
Oh, right. Well, I really love Hill 16, and I'm convinced he is going to be tailor-made for a Grand National. I think he needs 17 to come out, but he'd be my main selection. It's just an Irish domination at this stage, isn't it, really? I think we'll get more clues over Cheltenham week, but Hill 16's entered in the Kinmure as well. But at this stage, hopefully those 17 come out, and he'll be my selection.
And the future exams, of course, with the A-levels, and then what's after that?
I have a conditional offer to study history at Oxford University. So I need to get my grades, and then hopefully I'll be heading to Oxford in October. And then after that, we'll be trying to become a racing journalist officially for somebody. I'd love to present ITV Racing, or recently, and I surprised somebody saying this the other day, the chair of the BHA or director of the BHA, whatever one, you can make the decisions with. That'd be quite an appealing job maybe one day. We've all got to have dreams, haven't we?
Definitely. And when you're at university, will you still be able to do some of your rein it in and work, or?
Nobody said no yet, so I'm just going to carry on. But, I've balanced it with A-levels, and hopefully I'll be able to do the same for university too. But I've got my weekends free from lectures and essays and things. So, yeah, we'll see.
Well, thank you very much for joining me here on the Paddock and the Pavilion. It's been great to speak to you, having been on the show so many times, but not being interviewed yourself. Thank you very much for joining me on the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be on the show, and good to be interviewed by you, I suppose. Thank you.
Well, hopefully we can get you back again doing some interviewing in another show at some point.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the support.
Thank you for listening to the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at the Pad and Pav. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey, you got any gum?
Yeah, check my backpack.
What's this?
Oh, that's naloxone. It can reverse an opioid overdose. I decided to always keep it on me after my friend almost died. It saved his life.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry. That makes me want to have it with me, too.
You totally should. Check the pharmacy. It was actually really easy to get, and it's easy to use.
I definitely will. Thanks.
Naloxone saves lives. Learn more at cdc.gov/stop overdose.